Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Hey, I am back. Good to be back. So want to go ahead and get to a little bit of a follow-up from a story that we talked about last week, and we've certainly talked about a lot here on the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel, and that is the recruitment of the #1 high school basketball player in America, AJ Dybantsa. At this point, in terms of who Dybantsa is, you don't need me to tell you. We've been over it again and again and again, but #1 high school player in America, 6'9", super skilled, 3-level scorer, super athletic. The thing that continues to stand out to me every time I watch him is how freaking hard the kid plays. You know, I've been covering basketball long enough to know high school basketball, AAU, etc. Sometimes when you get players that are so talented, so physically gifted, sometimes they just coast, right? They just take plays off, takes games off. I can name you 20 of them off the top of my head that are now playing in the NBA that were just so much better than everybody else in high school basketball. They didn't have to give 100% every week. Bring it up because AJ is not that kid. I am so impressed by how hard he plays. By the way, he's getting better. We mentioned this on Friday's update. The fact that he was at Border League two weekends ago. That's essentially like fall AAU basketball. All the best high school players in the country, all the best high school teams in the country get together in Vegas for a weekend. And AJ was the star of that. Worth noting, by the way, he outplayed Cam Boozer and Cam Boozer's team, a guy that has been a kind of a thorn in his side. Cam Boozer, the #2 player in America, has beaten him at Peach Jam a couple times, specifically this year in the championship game. Well, AJ Dybantsa got the better of him at Border League, and he's playing really good basketball. With that said, we talked about it on Friday, and really where we talked about it from was a really good On3 article from Pete Nakos. I think he does a good job. That kind of just set up the recruitment of AJ Dybantsa, who's recruiting him, NIL, how much of a factor is it? And we discussed it from that perspective. Well, what's interesting is we got yet another new update. By the way, on Friday's show, if you missed it, I said, listen, I don't think the recruitment is a done deal, but I think if you're a BYU fan, you should feel really good. Well, I bring it up because the midweek recruiting update on AJ Dybantsa is this. More info is coming in. More intel is coming in. And oh, by the way, if you're a BYU fan, you just got to feel really, really, really good about where things are standing, because the more information that comes in, the more it's looking like AJ Dybantsa is eventually going to be a Cougar. By the way, make sure if you're a BYU fan, you're following our Torres on BYU Twitter account, Torres on BYU. Question now, what has happened that has us so excited or has us intrigued in the possibility that AJ Dybantsa is going to be a BYU Cougar? Well, it's crystal ball season, and the crystal balls are starting to roll in, and they're all virtually in favor of BYU. Found this interesting. Our Torres on BYU account found this Twitter page. Credit to the team that helps me with Torres on BYU. We have a great intern helping me run that. And this came from the AJ Dybantsa Muse page, okay? Not familiar with him beforehand, or her, whoever runs the account. But they put this out, and I think it's at least worth noting. BYU now has the first official crystal ball from 24/7 Sports. 68% of all the recruiting prediction machine information on On3 is coming in for BYU as well. Now, I'll say this. I don't transparently know exactly how On3 does this recruiting prediction machine, but what I can tell you is that the crystal ball on 24/7 Sports comes from Travis Branham, somebody I know a little bit, but I respect a ton, okay? Travis Branham is, in my opinion, one of the best recruiting writers in America. And I don't think he would put in a crystal ball prediction unless he felt really, really, really good that BYU was eventually going to be the pick. And so, again, I think there should be reason for excitement for BYU fans. First of all, like I said, any media member that puts in a crystal ball, they know, especially to 24/7 Sports and On3 or whatever, they know the ramifications of doing that. They know it's going to be picked up by message boards, by Reddit, by whoever. And again, I don't want to speak for Travis Branham, whatever. But what I do know is that guy takes his job really seriously, and he's not going to put something in unless he feels very confident that is going to be the pick. And again, it falls in line with everything that I have heard about this recruitment and why I've said since the summer. Listen, I've never said that BYU is 100% getting him, but I've been saying since probably August that I feel like the BYU pitch, the BYU sale, what BYU is offering is as good as anybody. And I've said from the beginning, I said, I don't think in July and August that there was a leader, but that BYU was in as good a shape as anybody. Well, as time goes on, I just think it's becoming increasingly clear that it's likely going to be BYU. And it's for some of the reasons we've talked about and some of the reasons we haven't, okay? One, I do think that geography in this case helps. AJ Dybantsa is not from Utah, but AJ Dybantsa is spending his senior year in high school basketball in Utah. Not far from Provo. I think it's like 2.5 hours, whatever. Easy to get to campus, easy to see what BYU is all about. But I also think there's a lot of other things going on for BYU. And by the way, I know what every other fan base can say. Well, it's only about NIL money. What I can tell you is I've heard from multiple people, NIL isn't the biggest NIL offering is not from BYU in this recruitment. Now, as Kevin Young said on this show, and by the way, I did not hear that from Kevin Young. I don't want people saying, oh, Torres is just saying whatever Kevin Young wants. No. Haven't talked to Coach Young since he's been on the pod. Respect him, like him. Haven't talked to him since he's been on the pod, okay? But I bring it up because when I look at why AJ Dybantsa would be interested in BYU, I think it's much more than NIL. The bottom line, the truth of the matter is pretty straightforward. He's going to get paid anywhere, okay? He's going to get paid anywhere. And I think, and I said this last week, the number of elite high school basketball players where NIL is the number one factor is way fewer than people think. Because if you're AJ Dybantsa and you pick the wrong school, and by the way, it's not just AJ Dybantsa, it's Cam Boozer, it's Darren Peterson, it's Malik Thomas, it's all these top players. If it's only about NIL and you pick the wrong school and you don't get developed properly, then guess what? That could be a decision that costs you hundreds of millions of dollars in the incoming years of your career, okay? Because it's not about, can you get whatever, just pick a number. Can you get 5 here versus 2.5 there, okay? Listen, let's use the example that AJ Dybantsa's dad used. Let's say that South Carolina, these were the schools that he used, not me. So let's say South Carolina's offering 5 and Kentucky's offering 2. If AJ wants to go to Kentucky, he's going to go to Kentucky, and that makes sense. It doesn't make sense if you're 18 years old and you're 1 year away from becoming a millionaire outside of college basketball to just take the biggest bag in college basketball. Because if you make the wrong decision, if you don't get developed, if you don't get put in a position to succeed, it's going to cost you draft stock and it's going to cost you in the long run exponentially. Again, if you put yourself in the best position, if you get to the league in a year and you're in great position and you play well and you get your second contract, that's hundreds of millions of dollars. Even bad players in the NBA are getting paid $40, $50 million a year right now, okay? And so I just bring it up because I don't think NIL is as big of a factor as people think. And what I do think it is at BYU, NIL is competitive, as Kevin Young has said, but it's all the other stuff. It is the fact they're running basically a minor league NBA organization at BYU. We've talked about it on the show, but look at every hire Kevin Young has made. It's all about putting a professional model at the college level, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's professional offense. It's professional system. It's professional weight training, strength and conditioning, nutrition, mental health. I mean, you go on and on down the list. All you got to do, go to BYU's staff page online. You don't need me to do it. It's not some inside information. They are setting up an NBA model. And so if you're AJ Dybantsa, you could go here, or you could go there, or you could go play for this coach for this much money. But you're playing for a coach that literally, if you choose BYU, was in the NBA a year ago, has spent his entire career in the NBA. He's got all sorts of NBA contacts, as I've said before, and I think this is underrated. Everybody says, why would you go to BYU? And this is no disrespect, BYU fans, but why would you go to BYU if you're not Mormon, if you're not part of the church? And I've said time and time again, we know what the honor code is at BYU. People would look at that as a negative, but BYU and that staff looks at it as a positive. If you can come here, if you can stay out of trouble, if you can put alcohol and girls and all the distractions aside for a year, then NBA teams have zero questions about you when they draft you. as opposed to a kid that goes here or goes there and you hear stuff and you don't know and he was late to this team meeting and da 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 da. And I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying it as a fact, as an indisputable fact. So they have the NBA system. They have NBA coaching. And I think that that model appeals to AJ Dybantsa and his team. I think most importantly, why the crystal ball now is important. Travis, I don't want to speak for Travis Branham or any recruiting writer, but they're not going to put it in unless this recruitment is maybe on the verge of being over. And I think that's the most interesting thing to me. When I look at it, I never understood this idea, and it's no disrespect to the family. The family is handling this perfectly, but they've said all along, we're going to commit in February. Well, you took all 7 visits over the course of the last probably 7-8 weeks. You've seen all these campuses. Nothing's going to change. And so I've always expected, why wait till February? Why not get it done? Why not get signed? It's going to create NIL opportunities for you while you're still in high school. Now, I don't know the Utah law and what's acceptable and what's not, but listen, I'll just be honest. If NIL was allowed, if NIL is allowed in Utah, and I owned a business and I was a BYU alum, I'd love to get in touch with AJ Dybantsa before he even enrolled. So these are all whatever. I could go on and on all day on this. I love this recruitment. I find it absolutely fascinating. But I'll tell you this, if you're a BYU fan, you have to feel really good about where this thing stands. The crystal balls are coming in. I said it last week. I think it's going to come to a close. This recruitment is going to come to a close faster than we expect. And BYU has to feel great in terms of where they are. If you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor. Make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We go live every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. We appreciate your support. And also, if you're a BYU fan, make sure to follow our Torres on BYU